The principal placed a clear plastic bag on the table between us. Inside were 6 cartons of milk, 4 wrapped sandwiches, 3 apples, 2 packets of crackers, and a jar of peanut butter with the school district label still on the lid. My 16-year-old daughter sat beside me with her arms folded. She was not crying. She was not apologizing. She looked tired. Principal Karen Walsh tapped the bag. "This is the 3rd documented incident." I looked at Sophie. "You took all of this?" "Yes." "Why?" She looked past me toward the office window. The cafeteria manager stood in the hall, pretending not to listen. Principal Walsh said, "We found additional food in her locker." "How much?" "Enough that we have to treat this as theft, not an impulsive mistake." Sophie finally looked at me. "If they were going to throw some of it away, why is it still stealing?" "The sandwiches were not going to be thrown away," the principal said. Sophie shrugged. That shrug made me angry, not because it was disrespectful, because it looked practiced, like she had already decided no explanation would change what happened next. The principal slid another document across the table. It was Sophie's cafeteria account history. For nearly 3 months, she had purchased 2 breakfasts and 2 lunches every Wednesday and Thursday, always the same days, always before she and her 9-year-old brother returned to their mother's house. "My name is Michael Grant. I was 43 when my daughter was suspended for stealing food from school. At the time, I thought the worst part of the story was that she had broken the law and refused to tell me why. I was wrong. The worst part was how many times she had already tried to tell me. I worked as a residential electrician in Columbus, Ohio. The job paid well enough, but the hours did not behave. A simple call could end at 4. Storm damage could keep me out until midnight. Rachel and I had been divorced for 6 years. Sophie was 16. Eli was 9. They lived mostly with Rachel and stayed with me on alternating long weekends and 1 midweek dinner. I paid child support, automatically covered medical and school costs, and had never missed a payment. For years, I counted that as proof I was a good father. I had rules for myself after the divorce. No surprise visits. No questioning the kids about Rachel's private life. No asking Sophie to report what happened in the other house. No using every complaint as an excuse to threaten court. Those rules came from a real place. During the first year after we separated, Rachel and I fought about everything. Bedtimes, shoes, homework, whether Eli needed a coat, whether Sophie could stay at a friend's house. Every exchange became a trial with no judge. The children learned to watch our faces before speaking. We went to co-parenting counseling. The counselor said, "Not every difference is danger. Children need permission to live in both homes." I took that sentence seriously. Maybe too seriously. 2 years after the divorce, Rachel married Evan Cross. Evan was 45 and worked in finance. At least that was how he described it. He had managed lending at a car dealership, then left to become an independent consultant. He drove a black SUV that always looked newly washed. He wore fitted shirts and a watch large enough to read across a room. He spoke calmly, especially when he wanted another person to look unreasonable. The first time we met, he said, "I understand boundaries." I said, "Good." He said, "The children need one set of expectations." I said, "They have 2 homes." His smile tightened. That was the beginning. Evan never shouted. He made every disagreement sound like proof that I lacked discipline. Forgotten homework became a transition failure. Ripped jeans became inconsistent standards. I stopped answering most of it. Once after Sophie complained that Evan tracked the time she spent online, I texted Rachel, "I don't want to hear every complaint from your house. If it's an emergency, call me. Otherwise, you two need to handle your own rules." I meant that I would not let Evan use the kids to start another conflict. The message became one of the most important mistakes of my life. Sophie was 13 when I sent it. She remembered every word. At the principal's office, I signed the suspension notice. 3 days out of school. Mandatory meeting with the counselor. Restitution for the missing food. I asked whether criminal charges were possible. Principal Walsh said the district preferred internal consequences unless theft continued. Sophie stared at the floor. In the car, I waited until we left the school parking lot. Are you selling food? No. Giving it to friends? No. Are you eating it? Some. Then where is the rest? She looked out the window. Sophie, what? You took food from the cafeteria 3 times? More than 3. I turned toward her at the red light. That is not helping. I'm not trying to help. Why would you say that? Because you already decided what this is. What is it? Me doing something stupid? You stole. I know. Then tell me why. She looked at me. You said to call only if it was an emergency. My anger rose because the sentence felt like manipulation. Do not use something I said years ago to avoid answering me. I answered. No, you blamed me. I didn't. You're 16. If you need money, food, anything, you ask me. I did. When? She unlocked her phone and scrolled. Then she held up a message from 3 months earlier. Oh, Sophie, Dad, can you send extra money for groceries this week? My response. I already sent support. Talk to your mom. I'm not getting in the middle. I remembered the exchange. At the time, I thought she wanted cash for snacks or takeout. I said, you did not explain. You did not ask. We drove the rest of the way in silence. At my house, Sophie went directly to her room. I called Rachel. She answered after 2 rings. What happened at school? They suspended Sophie. For what? You don't know. No. She has been taking food from the cafeteria. Rachel was quiet. Then she said, how much? Enough to fill a locker. Oh my God. Why would she do that? I don't know. She's been difficult lately. Difficult how? Secretive. Angry. She thinks rules do not apply to her. Has she been asking for extra food at your house? Rachel's tone changed. What are you suggesting? I'm asking. We have food. Does Michael, does he have enough to eat? Of course. Then why is Sophie buying 2 breakfasts and 2 lunches before coming back to you? Rachel breathed out slowly. Eli is picky. She indulges him. That does not explain taking food from school. She is trying to create drama. Why? Because she wants to live with you full time. That answer made sense because I wanted it to. Sophie and Rachel had argued more over the last year. Curfews, her job at the bakery, college plans, Evan's phone rules. Maybe Sophie was escalating to force a custody change. I hated myself later for how quickly I accepted that possibility. I said, we need to meet. Rachel replied, not with Evan being accused of starving children. I did not say Evan. You did not have to. The call ended. Eli arrived the next afternoon for my scheduled weekend. Rachel dropped him off without coming to the door. He carried his backpack and a plastic grocery bag. What's in the bag? I asked. Stuff. What stuff? He moved it behind his leg. School stuff. I did not push. That evening, I ordered pizza because I was tired and had no plan. Eli ate 3 slices in less than 10 minutes. Then he wrapped 2 more in napkins. You can leave those on the plate, I said. I'm full. You just wrapped them? For later. Put them in the fridge. He hesitated. Then placed them behind the milk. Sophie watched from the counter. She did not say anything. At midnight, I woke to the sound of a cabinet closing. I found Eli in the kitchen, standing in the dark. He held a spoon covered in peanut butter. The jar sat open. When he saw me, he froze. I'm sorry. For what? I'll write it down. Write what down? How much? He reached for a notepad on the counter that did not exist. Eli, you do not have to write down food here. He looked toward the hallway. Did I use too much? No. Can I finish it? Yes. He ate the spoonful slowly, not like a child enjoying a snack, like someone waiting to be stopped. I sat at the table. Is there a food list at Mom's house? He looked down. Eli! I'm not supposed to complain. Who told you that? Nobody. Then what are you talking about? He said nothing. I asked if he was hungry often. He shook his head too quickly. I asked whether he had breakfast that morning. He said yes. What cereal? What kind? The square kind. How much? A cup? Did you eat lunch? At school. Dinner last night. He rubbed the edge of the spoon with his thumb. Soup. What kind? Tomato. Anything with it? I don't remember. Sophie appeared in the doorway. Stop! I looked at her. I'm asking questions. You're making him think he did something wrong. I'm trying to understand. She stepped between us. He's fine. No, he is hiding pizza in napkins. He likes leftovers. He asked whether he exceeded a limit. Her face changed. Only slightly. Enough. What limit, I asked. Sophie said Evan has household rules. About food. About waste. How much are you allowed to eat? It depends. On what? She folded her arms. School, activity, what's already open. What does that mean? It means he makes portions. Does your mother know? She lives there. That is not what I asked. Sophie looked at Eli. Go upstairs. He did not move. She said it again. He took the peanut butter and spoon with him. I waited until he was gone. Tell me. Sophie stared toward the stairs. Evan keeps a board in the kitchen. What board? Household use limits. The phrase sounded corporate. What is on it? Food, showers, laundry, Wi-Fi. Showers. 10 minutes. Food. She listed the rules without emotion. 1 portion of cereal. No snacks after 8. Milk only with breakfast. No opening new food until old food was finished. No eating without writing it down. On nights Rachel worked late, Evan sometimes locked the pantry. With what, I asked. An app. You're telling me he has a lock on the food. It's a smart cabinet lock. Does your mother know? She knows the rules. Does she know he locks it when she is gone? Sophie looked away. How long? A while. How long? Since winter. It was May. I felt pressure rise behind my eyes. Why didn't you call me? Her answer was quiet. You said only if it was an emergency. This is an emergency. Now it is. What does that mean? It means now you can see it. The sentence was not fair. It was also true. I stood. We're going to your mother's. Sophie moved in front of the door. No. Yes. You can't show up. I can when my children are not being fed. She'll deny it. Then I'll see the kitchen. Evan will call the police. I don't care. I do. She was crying now. Not loudly. Her face remained hard while tears ran down it. If you go over there angry, he'll say you're dangerous. Mom will agree because she gets scared. Then the judge will think you told me to make this up. I stopped. It was a child's understanding of family court. It was also not wrong. I called my attorney. Her name was Denise Porter. She had handled my divorce and warned me every year not to turn minor disagreements into emergency motions. When I told her about the food, she said, "Do not go to the house. My son is hiding food." I heard you. There is a lock on the pantry. Photographs. No. Medical evidence. No. Sophie's statement. She just told me. Then document it. Schedule the pediatrician. Contact the school counselor. Do not coach either child. Do not record them secretly. Do not keep them beyond your time without legal advice unless there is immediate physical danger. What counts as immediate? Not a question I can answer from a phone call. That is convenient. It is frustrating. Different thing. I wanted action. She gave me procedure. That night I slept outside Eli's room, not because I thought Evan would appear, because I could not stop imagining my son standing in another dark kitchen counting spoonfuls. The next morning I found 3 cereal bars beneath his pillow. I did not remove them. I placed 2 more beside them. When Eli woke, he looked at the bars, then at me. Do I have to write these down? No. All 5. All 5. I won't eat all 5. You can save them. He touched one wrapper. Will there be more? Yes. Tomorrow. Yes. He nodded. He did not smile. Trust does not always arrive as relief. Sometimes it arrives as a question repeated until the answer stays the same. On Monday, I took Eli to his pediatrician. Dr. Nisha Patel had treated him since kindergarten. She compared his current weight to the chart. Then she checked it again. Eli had lost 11 pounds in 8 months. He had grown almost 2 inches. His body mass percentile had fallen sharply. "Any stomach problems?" she asked. "No," I said. Eli shook his head. "Vomiting, diarrhea, pain." "No." "Changes in appetite." I looked at him. He looked at the floor. Dr. Patel asked to speak with him alone. I waited in the hall for 20 minutes. When she brought me back, her expression had changed. She did not tell me everything Eli said. She said enough. "He reports inconsistent access to meals in one household." "What does that mean?" "It means he sometimes does not know whether he will be permitted to eat after school or at night." "Did he say Evan denies him food?" "He described household rules and locked food storage." "Can you call child services?" "I am a mandated reporter." My stomach tightened. "Will they take the kids?" "That is not automatically what happens. Rachel is their mother." "I understand. She may not know." "Then the investigation should establish that." Dr. Patel ordered blood work, iron, electrolytes, vitamin levels. She asked about his asthma medication. The pharmacy record showed his controller inhaler had not been refilled in 4 months. I had assumed Rachel handled it. Rachel had assumed Evan did. Evan told Eli insurance would not cover it. The prescription cost $27 with the discount card. I sat in the parking lot after the appointment and stared at the pharmacy receipt. $27. I had spent more than that on a drill bit without thinking. Sophie had been stealing food while I congratulated myself for paying child support on time. The county child services intake worker called that afternoon. Her name was Angela Morris. She asked me to describe exactly what I observed, not what I believed. I told her about the cafeteria food, the account history Eli's questions about, limits the food under the pillow, the weight loss, and the missing inhaler. "Did either child say they were physically assaulted?" she asked. "No." "Threatened?" "Sophie said Evan controls food." Those were her words. "No, she described rules." "Please distinguish her words from your interpretation." I understood why. I also hated it. Angela said a caseworker would contact both homes. I called Rachel before the county did. She answered at work. I took Eli to Dr. Patel. "You were not supposed to schedule appointments without telling me." "He lost 11 pounds. Silence. "Did she say he is sick?" "She said he is not getting consistent meals." "That is ridiculous." "She filed a report." Rachel's breathing changed. "You called child services." "The doctor did." "You set this up." I took him for an exam. "You are trying to take my children." "I am trying to understand why our son is hiding food." "Evan has rules. He does not starve them." "There is a lock on the pantry." "To keep Sophie from taking food at night." "She was taking it to feed Eli." "You don't know that." "I know he asked if he could finish a spoon of peanut butter." Rachel began crying. Not loudly. The sound was more frightening than shouting. "You have no idea what you're doing." "Then tell me." "I am at work." "Tell me tonight." "I cannot." "Why?" She ended the call. That evening, Sophie gave me a folded sheet of paper. It listed dates and amounts. Groceries, electric bill, inhaler, school lunch debt. At the bottom, total from Dad's cash, $612. I stared at it. "What is this?" "I took money from your workshop." The envelope. I kept emergency cash in a locked drawer. The key hung behind a tool cabinet. Sophie knew where. "You stole $600 from me." "Yes." "For this?" She nodded. "Why didn't you ask?" "I did." "You asked once by text." "I asked Mom, I asked Evan, I asked you. You did not tell me you were taking cash." "Because you would stop me." "Yes. And then Eli would still need food." I had to walk away, not because I wanted to punish her, Because anger and shame were using the same voice inside me. I stood in the garage beside the open cash drawer. The missing money had bothered me for weeks. I had blamed myself. Then one of my helpers. I had almost confronted him. Sophie followed me. I know it was wrong. Do you? Yes. You stole from school. You stole from me. You forged a meal assistance form. Her eyes widened. How do you know? The school counselor called. She looked down. You used Jenna's lunch account, too. Twice. Jenna reported you... No. Who did? She did not answer. I later learned Jenna had reported concerns to the counselor because Sophie stopped eating her own lunch. At the time, I thought she had turned in my daughter for theft. That was the pattern. I kept seeing accusations before I saw warnings. I said, "You cannot keep solving this by lying." Sophie's face hardened. Neither can Mom. That does not excuse you. I didn't say it did. What do you want me to do? For once, the words came out sharp. Then her voice broke. Believe me before I prove it perfectly. I had no answer. Child Services visited Rachel's home the next day. Evan opened stocked cabinets, showed grocery receipts, and described the smart locks as budgeting tools. The house was clean. There were no bruises or obvious neglect. He presented meal plans called Sophie Attention Seeking and showed the old text where I said I did not want to hear every complaint from their house. Rachel agreed that Sophie exaggerated. The case remained open, but the children stayed there. Evan called me afterward. His voice was calm. You frightened Rachel. Good. That response will be documented. Document this: my son lost 11 pounds. Eli has selective eating habits. He hides food because Sophie creates anxiety around meals. You lock the pantry. We use inventory controls. You mean a child has to ask permission to eat? Children always need parental permission. No, they need guidance. And yet your daughter stole $600 from you. I said nothing. He knew. Sophie had told Rachel, or Rachel had found the receipts. Evan continued. You are building a legal case on the statements of a teenager who lies, steals, and resents household structure. She was feeding her brother. That is her story. Why were the asthma refills missed? Insurance issue. It cost $27. That is not the point. What is the point? The point is that you are undermining a functioning home because you cannot tolerate not being in control. The line was designed for me. I had spent 6 years trying not to be that man. He knew it. I said, do not contact me except in writing. That will make this easier. He hung up. For the first time, I understood that Evan did not need me to believe him. He only needed the situation to remain arguable, and it was. Denise filed an emergency motion requesting temporary custody and a neutral home assessment. The hearing was set for 8 days later. 8 days felt impossible. The judge denied our request to keep the children from returning to Rachel before the hearing because there was no immediate removal order from Child Services. My scheduled time ended Monday morning. I had to send them back. Sophie packed slowly. Eli stood beside the refrigerator. You have food at Mom's? I asked. Yes. He used the same quick answer as before. I placed snacks in his backpack. Denise had warned me not to turn the children into couriers or secretly supply evidence. Food was not evidence. Still, Sophie removed half the snacks. Why are you taking those out? Evan checks. So, he'll say you're teaching us to ignore the rules. I am teaching you to eat. He'll make Eli throw them away. I looked at my son. Has he done that? Eli did not answer. Sophie said, give them to me. She placed the snacks inside a zippered pocket in her school binder. I hated the secrecy. I also handed her 2 grocery store gift cards. No cash, I said. She almost smiled. Because I'm a thief. Because gift cards have records. That's very you. I know. At the exchange point, Rachel remained in the driver's seat. Evan sat beside her. He lowered the window. You are not to send unapproved food into our home. They are snacks. We have food. Then these won't be needed. Sophie opened the back door. Evan said, "Give me the backpack." She froze. I stepped forward. "Do not search her in the parking lot. It is our household property entering our home." "It is her school bag." Rachel said, "Please don't do this here." She was looking at me, not him. I said, "Rachel, Eli has lost 11 pounds. "I know. Then why are you letting him take the food?" Her face went pale. Evan opened his door. I remembered Denise's warning. No threats, no scene. No action that could become a new issue. I stepped back. Sophie gave Evan the backpack. He found the snacks. He placed them on the roof of the car. Then he found the gift cards. He held them up. "This is exactly the behavior the court will see." "What behavior?" "Undermining." I looked at Rachel. She stared through the windshield. The children got in. The car drove away. The snacks remained on the roof until the first turn scattered them across the road. I stood there while cars drove around cereal bars and crackers. I did not follow. It was one of the hardest correct choices I had ever made. The next morning, Sophie did not attend school. Rachel emailed that she was sick. The school counselor, Melissa Boyd, called me. "Sophie sent me a message at 2:17 this morning." "What did it say?" Melissa could not disclose everything without Sophie's consent, but she said the message suggested the home conflict was escalating. "Is she safe?" "I contacted the county and requested a welfare check." "What did she write?" "She said Evan found food in her room and removed the bedroom door." My hand tightened around the phone. He removed the door. She also said her mother was working overnight. I drove toward Rachel's house. Denise called while I was 3 miles away. "Turn around." "My daughter has no door." "The sheriff is going." "I can be there first." "And that helps how—" She called for help. She contacted a mandated reporter, which was the right choice. Do not convert that into a confrontation. I pulled into a gas station. My hands shook against the steering wheel. The sheriff's deputy called me an hour later. The children were physically safe. The bedroom door had been removed from its hinges. Evan said Sophie repeatedly hid food and electronic devices in violation of rules. The deputy instructed him to restore privacy or provide an alternative sleeping arrangement. He did not arrest anyone. The pantry contained food. The refrigerator contained food. Again, visible supply, invisible access. The caseworker requested the smart lock logs. Evan said the account had been reset and earlier data was unavailable. He had made a mistake. Not because the logs were gone, because he claimed they were. Sophie had photographed the app on Rachel's tablet weeks earlier. The screenshot showed 90 days of access history. Most evenings, the pantry opened between 5 and 6. On nights Rachel worked late, it did not open again until morning. The refrigerator remained accessible. Evan emphasized that. But the refrigerator often contained condiments, leftovers marked with dates, ingredients requiring cooking. A locked drawer held cheese, deli meat, yogurt, and fruit. The household had calories. Access remained controlled. Melissa Boyd met with Sophie after she returned to school. This time, Sophie allowed her to share notes with child services and the court. The notes went back months. Sophie had said, "Eli gets dizzy when he stands up. Mom says Evan is fixing the budget. I think Mom does not eat at work so we can have dinner. I keep food in my locker because it is safer than my room. I do not want Dad to start a custody fight." That last line hurt. I had worked so hard not to place my children in the middle that I had taught them to conceal anything that might pull me into conflict. Melissa also explained how the school discovered the theft. It was Jenna, Sophie's best friend. Jenna noticed Sophie bought 2 lunches but ate neither. She saw Sophie become dizzy in gym class. She found crackers and milk cartons in Sophie's locker. Jenna did not report theft. She told the counselor she thought Sophie had an eating disorder. Sophie felt betrayed. Jenna had been the first person to act. I asked whether Sophie could return to school before the hearing. Principal Walsh said the suspension stood, but the district would not pursue police charges. Restitution remained. So did the forged meal form and misuse of another student's account. I wanted everything dropped. Denise told me not to confuse compassion with erasure. Sophie needs adults to understand why she did it, she said. She also needs adults who will not teach her that a good reason makes every method acceptable. That sounds easy from outside. It is not easy. It is still true. We met Rachel at the pediatric clinic 2 days before the hearing. Dr. Patel had requested both parents. Evan came too. The waiting room smelled like disinfectant and crayons. Rachel looked exhausted. Evan looked prepared. Dr. Patel reviewed Eli's blood work. Iron deficiency, mild dehydration, no underlying gastrointestinal disease, no endocrine explanation for the weight loss. She said his eating pattern and reported access were consistent with food insecurity. Evan leaned forward. With respect, our home is not food insecure. Dr. Patel replied, food insecurity does not always mean an empty refrigerator. It includes inconsistent or uncertain access to adequate food. He has access. Does he have independent access to age-appropriate snacks? He is 9. That is not an answer. Rachel rubbed her hands together. Dr. Patel asked to manage the inhaler refill. Rachel said Evan handled insurance. Evan said the pharmacy failed to apply the proper benefit. Dr. Patel placed the refill history on the table. 4 months without pickup. The prescription had been ready twice. Once for $27, once for $19. Was the cost unaffordable, she asked. Evan said, that is a private financial question. It is a medical question when a child does not receive medication. Rachel looked at him. You said it was $200. The brand version was. You said insurance denied all of it. It was complicated. Dr. Patel continued. Eli reports saving food because he is unsure when he can eat. That behavior may persist even after access improves. Evan said, his sister has encouraged hoarding. Rachel flinched. It was the first time I saw her react against him. Stop blaming Sophie, she said. Evan turned. I am explaining the dynamic. She bought his food. She stole. She bought his food. The room went quiet. Rachel's face collapsed. I thought she was eating at work, she said. Who? I asked. Sophie. She told me the bakery gave her food. Sometimes they did, Sophie said from the doorway. I had not realized Melissa brought her from the counselor's office for part of the appointment. Rachel looked at her daughter. Why didn't you tell me? Sophie laughed once. It sounded terrible. I did. Rachel covered her mouth. Evan said, this is turning into theater. Dr. Patel stood. This is my examination room. You may leave if you cannot participate appropriately. He did not leave. People like Evan rarely left rooms where they could still control interpretation. After the appointment, Rachel asked to speak with me alone. Evan waited in the SUV. We stood beside my truck. I did not know about the wait, she said. You missed 2 appointments. I was working. You could have rescheduled. Evan said he handled it. You keep saying that. I know. She looked at the SUV. He took over the accounts after I overdrafted twice. How long ago? A year. Does your paycheck go into the joint account? Yes. Can you access it? Yes. Without him. She did not answer. Rachel, I have a card. That is not what I asked. She lowered her voice. He changes passwords when we argue. Why stay? Her face hardened. You don't get to ask that like the answer is simple. I am not asking simply. You have a house, a job, a lawyer. You think choices remain available because they remain available to you. That does not excuse what happened to the kids. I know. Do you? She began crying. I know enough to hate myself. I wanted to soften. I also wanted to shake her. Both impulses were about relieving my own discomfort. I said, tell the truth at the hearing. She looked toward Evan. I don't know if I can. Then Sophie will. Rachel closed her eyes. That is what I'm afraid of. Not Evan. Not court. Her daughter telling the truth in a room where Rachel could no longer call it temporary. That was the first moment I understood Rachel was not protecting the marriage because she loved it. She was protecting the last version of herself in which she had not failed the children. The emergency hearing began at 9 on Friday. Family court did not look dramatic. Beige walls, a state flag, a judge with reading glasses, a clerk who spoke quickly. No jury, no audience beyond the people involved. Judge Naomi Feldman reviewed written reports before anyone spoke. Denise represented me. Rachel had an attorney named Paul Whitaker. Evan had separate counsel because the Child Services investigation now included him directly. Angela Morris attended for the county. Dr. Patel and Melissa Boyd waited outside until called. Sophie sat beside a court-appointed advocate. Eli was not present. The judge began with temporary safety, not blame. Denise presented the weight chart, pharmacy records, cafeteria, account, school notes, and the smart lock screenshot. Evan's attorney objected to authentication of the screenshot. The judge admitted it provisionally. Rachel's attorney said the home contained ample food and that Sophie had engaged in repeated dishonesty. That part was true. He listed theft from school, theft from me, forged signature, use of Jenna's account, hidden food, false statements about where money went. Each fact struck like a nail. Denise did not deny them. She said, "The question is not whether Sophie violated rules. She did. The question is why a 16-year-old concluded theft was more reliable than asking the adults responsible for feeding her brother." Evan testified first. He was excellent, calm, concerned. He described a household under financial pressure after Rachel reduced work hours. He said the rules prevented waste. He said Sophie objected to limits on junk food and electronics. He said Eli had sensory preferences and often refused meals. He showed photographs of stocked cabinets. He produced grocery receipts. He quoted my old text. Then he said I had encouraged the children to view ordinary discipline as abuse. Denise asked who controlled the smart lock app. Evan said both adults, whose phone executed the locks on the dates shown. I cannot verify that screenshot. Did you reset the account after Child Services requested logs? I updated the security credentials. Did that delete history? I am not a technician. Did you tell the caseworker the history was unavailable? Yes. Was it unavailable before or after you changed the credentials? His attorney objected. The judge allowed the question. Evan said after, the first crack, small, but visible. Denise asked about Rachel's work schedule. On 12 of the 15 evenings with no second pantry opening, Rachel worked until after 9. Who supervised the children? I did. Did you provide dinner? Yes. What? He listed meals: chicken and rice, soup, pasta, sandwiches. Denise placed Sophie's receipts beside the dates. On 8 of those evenings, Sophie purchased food at a convenience store between school and home. On 3, she used cash from my workshop. On 2, Jenna bought groceries with her mother. Coincidence remained possible. Pattern was becoming harder to ignore. Dr. Patel testified next. She did not accuse Evan of intentional starvation. She described weight loss, iron deficiency, missed medication, food hoarding behavior, and Eli's statements. Evan's attorney asked whether anxiety created by custody conflict could produce the same behavior. Dr. Patel said yes, then added, anxiety does not explain the pharmacy record or caloric access logs. Melissa Boyd testified about Sophie's reports. She explained that Jenna sought help because she feared an eating disorder. Sophie had not initially accused Evan. She had minimized. That mattered. People manufacturing allegations usually move toward attention. Sophie had moved away from it. Then Rachel testified. Her attorney led her gently. She said there was food in the home. She said Evan handled budgeting because she had struggled with overdrafts. She said she believed Eli's weight change reflected growth and picky eating. She said Sophie often challenged rules. All true. Denise asked whether Rachel had unrestricted access to the joint account. Rachel said, I have a debit card. Can you view the balance? Yes. Today, Rachel paused. I believe so. Do you know the password? No. Can you reset it without Mr. Cross receiving notice? No. Do you have money in an account solely in your name? Evan's attorney objected to financial privacy. The judge overruled. Rachel said, Not currently. Did you previously? Another pause. Yes. What happened to it? Funds were transferred. By whom? Rachel looked at Evan. He did. Did you consent? I had discussed leaving. The room changed. Evan's attorney stood. Rachel's lawyer asked for a recess. Judge Feldman denied it until the question was answered. Rachel's voice became almost inaudible. I had saved $2,800. He found the account and moved it into the joint account. Why? He said I was preparing to take the children without telling him. Were you? I was preparing options. Did he prevent you from leaving? No. The answer came automatically. Then she corrected herself. He did not physically prevent me. Denise asked whether Rachel knew the pantry locked when she worked late. Rachel said she knew there were limits. Did you know the food remained locked until morning? No. Did Sophie tell you? Rachel began crying. Yes. What did you do? I told her to stop making things worse. Sophie looked down. That was the point when I stopped seeing Rachel only as someone Evan controlled. She was controlled. She was also the adult Sophie had approached. Both facts remained. Then Sophie was called. The judge explained that she did not have to give perfect answers. She only had to tell what she remembered. Sophie did not deliver the speech people imagine teenagers give in court. She lost track of dates. She contradicted herself about how often the pantry was locked. She admitted one convenience store purchase was for energy drinks, not Eli. Evan's lawyer asked whether she wanted to live with me. She said yes. He asked whether she disliked rules. She said some. He asked whether she had lied. She said many times. He asked whether she stole from me. Yes. From school? Yes. Forged your mother's signature? Yes. Used another student's account? Yes. He sat down as if the case had ended. Judge Feldman asked Sophie why she did those things. Sophie gripped her sleeves. I knew they were wrong. That was not my question. I was buying food. For whom? Eli, me, sometimes Mom. Rachel made a sound. Sophie continued. Mom says she is not hungry when she works late, but she gets headaches. So I left things in her purse. The judge asked why she did not tell another adult sooner. I told the counselor some things. Your father... Sophie looked at me. I asked for grocery money. Did you explain why? No. Why not? Because every time I said something about their house, everyone acted like I was trying to start a fight. The judge asked whether I told her not to complain. Sophie quoted my text almost exactly. I felt every person in the room look at me. Then she said, I know I did wrong. I know stealing is wrong. But every time I tried doing it the right way and told an adult, they said wait a little longer. Mom said things would get better. Dad said only call if it was an emergency. The school said I needed forms. Eli was hungry before anyone finished deciding what counted. Nobody moved. It was not a polished line. Her voice cracked halfway through. That made it worse. Or better. More true. I testified last. Denise asked about support payments. I confirmed every payment. She asked whether I believed that made me attentive. I said yes, then corrected myself. I used to. I admitted sending the text. I admitted ignoring Sophie's grocery request. I admitted allowing boundaries after divorce to become an excuse not to ask questions. Evan's attorney asked whether I was accepting blame to appear reasonable. I said, no, I am accepting the part that is mine. He asked whether I caused the food restrictions. No. Whether I knew about the pantry lock? No. Whether I instructed Sophie to steal? No. Then why criticize yourself? Because I paid support on time and called that responsibility. I told a child to decide when a problem was serious enough to interrupt adults. She made bad choices. She should not have needed those choices to get our attention. The judge called a recess. We waited in the hallway. Rachel sat alone. Evan spoke with his lawyer near the elevators. Sophie sat beside her advocate. I wanted to hug her. I did not know whether that would feel like comfort or performance. She solved it by leaning against my shoulder. After 40 minutes, we returned. Judge Feldman granted me temporary residential custody of both children. Rachel received supervised parenting time pending further assessment. Evan was ordered to have no direct contact with the children during the temporary period. The court ordered a full financial control assessment, continued child services involvement, nutritional follow-up, individual counseling for Sophie and Eli, co-parenting review, preservation of smart device and banking records. The judge did not terminate Rachel's rights. She did not accuse Evan of a crime from the bench. She said the immediate issue was restoring predictable access to food and medication. Then she addressed Sophie. The reasons for your actions matter. They do not erase the actions. Sophie nodded. The judge said the school could determine discipline, but the court recommended a restorative plan instead of exclusion. Outside, Evan walked past me without speaking. Rachel stopped. I'm sorry, she said to Sophie. Sophie looked at her. For which part? Rachel had no answer. Neither did I. Temporary custody did not make the house feel safe overnight. Eli asked whether we were staying through Tuesday next week and whether cereal would still be there. Dr. Patel and his therapist helped us create an open snack shelf that belonged to him. The first week he emptied it and hid everything. I refilled it. By the fourth week, most items remained. Healing looked like unopened crackers. Sophie's school discipline changed after the hearing. The suspension remained on her record. She had to repay the cafeteria cost from her bakery wages. She lost access to the student store for the semester. She also completed 60 hours at a community food pantry under supervision. She hated the arrangement at first. It makes me look like a charity case, she said. You are not receiving charity, you are replacing what you took. I took food for Eli. You also forged forms and used Jenna's account. She said it was okay. She said it once because she was scared for you. Sophie looked away. I continued. You had a reason. You also crossed lines. Both can be true. She said, You sound like the judge. That is upsetting for both of us. She almost smiled. At the food pantry, Sophie stocked shelves, checked expiration dates, and assembled family boxes. The director, Mrs. Alvarez, did not ask for her entire story. She gave her work. At the end of the first month, Sophie told me that a woman had returned canned beans because her children would not eat them. She apologized 6 times, Sophie said, for returning beans, for being difficult. What did you say? I told her it wasn't difficult if the food would go to waste. That was good. I stole that line from Mrs. Alvarez. Most useful things are learned from someone. Jenna came to our house one Saturday. Sophie refused to come downstairs. I let Jenna wait on the porch. She held a notebook and a bag from the bakery. I didn't report her for stealing, she said. I know. She thinks I did. I know. I thought she wasn't eating because she hated herself. The sentence was blunt in the way teenagers can be. I said, You did the right thing. She lost school because of me. She lost school because adults found the food. Jenna looked unconvinced. Doing the right thing does not protect you from feeling responsible for what follows. I asked whether she wanted me to take the bakery bag upstairs. She said no. I need Sophie to decide if she hates me. She waited 40 minutes. Sophie eventually came down. They argued in the driveway, then cried, then argued again. By dinner, Jenna was at our table. Repair is often repetitive. The financial assessment showed Evan had lost most consulting income and hidden more than $60,000 in debt. Rachel's paychecks and child support kept the mortgage minimum payments and his SUV alive. Thousands also went to sports betting. There was no single transaction labeled stolen support. The problem was simpler. The children lacked predictable food and medication, while Evan protected appearances and financial control. The prosecutor reviewed possible neglect and financial abuse charges. No immediate felony case appeared. People online would have hated that ending. Real cases do not organize themselves around audience satisfaction. Evan received no contact restrictions during the investigation. The family court later barred unsupervised contact with the children. His financial conduct became part of Rachel's divorce case. He did not disappear into prison. He moved into an apartment and continued saying everyone had misunderstood a budgeting system. Rachel moved into a one-bedroom apartment and began supervised visits. She brought too many snacks. One afternoon, Sophie said, "You don't get to make food. Prove you love us now," Rachel cried. Later, Sophie asked whether she had been cruel. "Yes," I said. "You think I should forgive her?" "No, but you chose the sentence that would hurt most." "She hurt us." "That explains it. It does not make every response useful." Rachel entered, counseling, opened her own account, changed her direct deposit, and filed for divorce. At first, she said she had not realized, and the children had not explained clearly. Later, her statements changed. I heard Sophie and asked her to wait. I saw Eli losing weight and accepted an easy explanation. I protected my marriage and my image longer than I protected their access to food. That admission helped her begin earning unsupervised time. Accountability is strange. People often fear it will destroy every chance of being trusted again. Sometimes it is the first evidence that trust might become possible. 6 months after the emergency hearing, Rachel received daytime visits without supervision. No Evan. No locked cabinets. A written meal plan created with Dr. Patel. Both children had phones they could use to contact me without permission. The plan sounded excessive until I remembered what informal trust had produced. Rachel and I did not reconcile. There was no hidden romance beneath the crisis. We became better co-parents slowly and with documentation, shared medical calendar, read receipts, expense records, direct questions. No phrases like "handle it at your house" when the children described something affecting health or safety. Michael from 6 months earlier would have called that intrusive. I called it paying attention. Eli regained 7 pounds in 5 months. His iron levels improved. His inhaler refills arrived automatically. The food hiding continued. He stored crackers inside pillowcases, winter boots, and a board game box. His therapist told us not to shame him or turn the hiding into another control struggle. We created predictable routines. Breakfast at 7, snack after school, dinner around 6, open shelf always available. No requirement to finish food. No punishment involving meals. At first, I announced the next meal repeatedly. Then he began asking less. One night, I found a cereal bar beneath his pillow. I placed 2 more beside it. The next morning, he carried all 3 downstairs. He placed them on the kitchen table. "I don't need these here," he said. "You can put them back on the shelf. Will you buy more when they're gone?" "Yes." He studied my face. "Even if I eat them fast?" "Yes." He placed them in the pantry. That was all. No hug. No music. A child moved food from hiding to a shelf because he believed the shelf would still exist tomorrow. Sophie changed in less visible ways. She stopped managing Eli's plate. At first, she watched every bite. She packed extra snacks even when he had enough. She checked my grocery receipts. Her therapist called it parentification. Sophie hated the word. "It sounds like I was pretending to be mom." "It means you carried adult responsibility," I said. "Someone had to." "At the time, maybe. And now you have to let us do it." "What if you miss something again?" The question deserved more than reassurance. "I might." She looked disappointed. I continued. "That is why we have more than one adult paying attention now. Me, your mom, Dr. Patel, the counselor, your therapist. You should speak when something is wrong. You should not have to solve it alone." "What if nobody listens?" "Then tell another adult." "That sounds exhausting." "It was more exhausting stealing lunch." She rolled her eyes. That was progress, too. The bakery promoted her to weekend shift lead. She repaid half the workshop cash and placed half in savings. Responsibility should build a future, not only punish the past. Principal Walsh removed the phrase chronic theft from an internal recommendation letter after Sophie completed restitution and pantry service. She did not remove the suspension. Sophie applied to colleges anyway. In her essay, she did not write a heroic story about feeding Eli. She wrote about the danger of becoming so certain you are the only responsible person that you stop asking for help. I read the draft once. It included me. Not kindly. I told her to keep it. The child services case remained open for 9 months. Angela checked food access medication and the children's statements. When she closed it, she wrote that we had stable access and enforceable communication. Code language sometimes protects warm things. A year later, we met at Rachel's apartment for Eli's school project. He had built a cardboard house with lights wired in parallel. If one light breaks, the others stay on, he said. That is the idea. Rachel looked down. Sophie noticed and let the moment pass. Afterward, Rachel served pizza. Eli ate 2 slices and left 1 on his plate. He did not wrap it. He did not ask whether it would be available later. Rachel asked if he wanted more. He said no. She said okay. It looked ordinary. Nobody in the room thought it was ordinary. Before leaving, Rachel asked to speak to me in the hall. I used to think you wanted proof I was a bad mother, she said. I wanted proof I was a good father. She nodded. Were you? Sometimes. She almost smiled. Me too. That was the closest we came to forgiving each other. Not a clean statement. Not absolution. Recognition. I once thought a good father was a man who paid everything on time, arrived for pickup, and never started a war with the mother of his children. Those things matter. They are not enough. Children do not measure safety through bank transfers or custody calendars. They measure it through smaller things. Whether the refrigerator opens, whether medicine appears before breathing becomes difficult, whether they can call without worrying they will destroy someone's marriage. And when they say something is wrong, whether the adults actually look up. Sophie stole food. Rachel failed to act. Evan used control and fear. I mistook distance for responsible parenting. None of those truths erase the others. That was what made the story ours instead of a lesson with clean characters. The plastic bag from the principal's office stayed in my garage for months. I had taken it home after paying restitution. One day I found it beneath a stack of work gloves. I threw it away, not because the food inside had become unimportant, because our family no longer needed the evidence to remember what hunger had looked like. We needed the habits that kept it from becoming invisible again.